News, Fox News, every half hour, only on 96.3 FM, 1370 AM, The Source.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. We speak to a lot of authors. And every once in a while, somebody will say, "What's your favorite book?" And I'll name a few. And I always name How Spider Saved Santa Bug. Mm-hmm. How Spider Saved Santa Bug. Now, isn't that a crazy title for a book? How Spider Saved Santa Bug. How Spider Saved Santa Bug is a little tiny book, maybe about 1/8 of an inch thick. It's a children's book. And the reason it's one of my favorites is because it is one of those books I remember reading to my son Alex when he was just a little boy. And I would lie in the bed on my back. He'd be on his back next to me. We'd hold the book over our faces, and I would be reading, and he'd be looking at the pictures. And it seemed like he wanted to hear How Spider Saved Santa Bug every night.
That is so cool.
There was an old lady who swallowed a fly.
Yes.
I could recite that whole thing to you right now. I read that one so many times. And then later on in years, he started reading the Goosebumps books, and he would read them. It took about a half-hour drive to get to school, in his case. And so he was whatever age he was, 8 or 9 years old. He was reading a Goosebumps book. By the time it took to go from home to school, and then at the afternoon on the way home, he could read a whole Goosebumps book. So
amazing. He
really embraced reading, and I think it all started with How Spider Saved Santa Bug. Dr. Ernest Morrell is on the phone. Dr. Morrell is a literary expert. He's the Macy Professor of English Education and Director of the Institute for Urban and Minority Educations at Teachers College at Columbia University. And he's written a book. It's called Every Child, a Super Reader, 7 Strengths to Open a World of Possible. Yeah, I think reading really, really is important to my son and probably should be to everybody. Dr. Ernest Morrell, good morning, sir.
Thanks for having me, Larry, and thanks for sharing that story. That was a great story.
Have you ever heard of that book?
I have not, but it's on my list. you definitely sold it.
It's funny. My son is going to be 30 in July, and one day I went to Google just to see if I could find that book online and share it with him. So I found the picture of the cover, and I emailed it to him or put it on Facebook or whatever I did, and said, "Hey, you remember this book?" And he did. So tell me about your book, Every Child a Super Reader.
Yeah, so my co-author Pam Allen and I, we started with this idea of, how do we respond positively to this reading crisis that people are talking about that's happening with our kids and in our schools, and how can we draw upon successful environments that we've seen in homes and community centers and schools, and how can we learn from what's common across each of those and put them together in the book? So the book is about, the subtitle is 7 Strengths to Open a World of Possible. How can we have a strength-based, asset-based, joy-based, fun-based reading, movement in homes and in classrooms? It really excites kids. And so we kind of start there. We build into why we think this is important, what some of the big ideas are in the past 56 years of research. But then we kind of lay it out. This is what you can do in your classroom. This is what you can do at home. This is what you can do if you're a babysitter, an after-school provider. And we walk through each of those strengths and give plenty of examples for how you can excite the kids that you love to be great readers, the same way you did with your son.
Yeah. One of the things that drove me nuts when Harry Potter started to be a phenomenon, I remember people complaining about the fact that it was wizardry and the children shouldn't be reading about wizardry. And I said, are you kidding? I said, they're not going to want to read the boring stuff that you're putting in front of them. Mm-hmm. They're never going to learn to read if they don't enjoy it. They get it. They understand this is play. This isn't real. And I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you disagree?
No, I agree. I have 3 kids. My 2 older ones have each gone through that phase where they've read all of those books. And, a couple of things are going on. One, their imaginations are absolutely engaged, right? 2, because the stories are so interesting, they're kind of a stretch. That by the time the kids are able to read Harry Potter, they're done with it already. So they're really stretching themselves. And it says something there about if the engagement level is high, kids are willing to work that much harder to get through the story. Sometimes, the parents have to read it. Sometimes you'll have to explain certain parts. And then the third thing is that those books are so long and so voluminous that kids are developing a vocabulary. They're developing reading stamina. So no, don't take the Harry Potter book out of the kids.
And plus,
encourage them to read it.
And plus, children have this insatiable curiosity because they want to. They know what they want to do career-wise, what their loves are and things. Their parents don't, but the children sort of have an inkling of what their passions are, and they got that curiosity, and most of the time they have to find it in books.
Yep, I agree so much, Robin. And one of our strengths is curiosity. And it's not even just, what books we put in front of kids, but it's kind of what we allow them to do as they're reading. If you're reading a nonfiction book and you decide, to try on one of those careers, right? I want to be a doctor, I want to be an astronaut, or you're reading a story and you want to write your own story and get your family members to act it out like a play. It's not just read the book and then tell me what happened. That's not what kids want to do. They want to read the book and launch their imagination. So
that's a good point.
Build that curiosity, then the more they'll want to read. Yeah.
Tell me about the statistics. My notes gave me some regarding how we're not doing that well as a nation when it comes to reading.
Yeah, so I thank you for the question. I think there are a couple of ways to look at it, and it's important to tell the slightly longer story. So I'll try to tell it in as short a way as I can. The problems are several. One is we have kind of stagnant reading achievement when there are more and more reading demands for students. So it's not that they're getting worse, it's that more is being demanded of them. And so we have to begin to rise to the occasion. The economy is changing, the world's changing, so we need more from the average child in terms of their reading ability. It used to be, if you were going to college and you were going to have a job at a desk, but if not, then you didn't have to be a strong reader. And so as the world changes, we have to keep up, and that's what all the industrialized nations are doing. The second quick story about the statistics is what is unique about the United States scores is the big discrepancy kind of within the country. That you have some kids that are doing super, super well. The kids that are at the top in the United States are the top in the world, but there's this huge gulf between them and many other kids. So those are the two things that I think we should hold on to, that we're being asked to do a lot more because the economy's changing, and that's why this notion of every child, not just the top 10%. But we've got to figure out why we're doing well with some and not others. And we're one of the only school systems that seems to have that kind of huge gulf between the best and the rest. And we're working on it. I mean, I definitely am optimistic about our political will and our ability to do this as a nation. The first step, I think, was the biggest one, and that was admitting that we had a problem. And, when we admit that we have a problem and we put all of our energy behind it, we generally solve those problems.
Yeah.
I think we're on the right path because it's on our radar screen, and the stories that you shared with your son is we're learning as parents that this is what we have to do, right? If we really want our children to be competitive, we have to do that.
Right, and to use my story just as an example, I wasn't trying to do anything. I wasn't trying to counter whatever the national norm was when my son was little. I was just trying to have some time with my son, and at the same time, he ended up learning to love reading.
Exactly.
I wonder how many parents who say, I want the best thing for my children, realize the importance of introducing children to books even before they can read.
Yeah, I think that you're right. And there's two parts to your story that are really important. One is introducing them to books, but also introducing them to books that they love and having that be a joyful time. So it's not like, at home has to be, the most traditional, boring notion we have in our minds of what school is, right? That will kill the kid. You're quizzing them at dinner.
Sure.
Like, tell me what happened in Chapter 3 of Goosebumps.
Right. Nobody wants to do that, right?
Introduce them to the joy of reading and celebrating it and having fun around it and letting them read things that they choose. And even if it seems a little easy, it's fine if they're loving it and they're having a great time around it. So that's the other part of it. Introduce them to the book, but also introduce them to the joy of reading.
Yeah. Dr. Ernest Morrell is our guest. We're talking about his book that he wrote with Pam Allen, by the way. It's called Every Child a Super Reader, 7 Strengths to Open a World of Possible. It's from Scholastic. And we'll come back after the break and talk about this some more. We'll be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. This Monday will feature more clouds and sun. There can be a shower at the coast, the high 77 to 81. For Monday night, partly cloudy skies, lows ranging from 57 well inland to about 65 on the coast. For Tuesday, clouds and limited sun and breezy with a shower or thunderstorm in parts of the area, high 78 to 82. Wednesday, mostly cloudy and windy with a couple of showers and thunderstorms, high 79 to 83. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm Joe Lundberg.
Are you in need of custom screen printing, embroidery, or promotional items? Then look no further and come visit the brand new Legacy Team Sales. LTS is conveniently located off 17th Street next to Armstrong Homes in beautiful Ocala. We offer the best prices and highest quality products for your company, team, school, or nonprofit. Whether looking for screen printed shirts, embroidered polos, or travel team uniforms, you'll be sure to find it at Legacy Team Sales. Come visit our new 27,000 square foot facility. Our friendly and knowledgeable sales staff will assist you in every part of your custom purchase. LTS carries the hottest brands in the industry like Under Armour, Russell, Mizuno, Asics, Badger Sports, Gildan, Pacific, Ogio, and many more. At LTS, screen printing embroidery is done in-house and we guarantee customer satisfaction. Stop by, give us a call, or check us out on the web at shoplts.com. Remember the name, LTS.
Cookies, 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 cookies. We go cookie eating cookies.
When you want something special and fun for any occasion, get cookies. King Cookie in the Paddock Mall in Ocala will make a delicious, fun-filled delight just for you. So next time you're in the mall, stop by King Cookie or call 352-237-2557. KingCookieOcala.com. Customized cookies, cakes, and more. King Cookie.
Eating cookies. We're so happy eating cookies. Cookies!
Have you heard of Hyperdirectory? When looking for local businesses, go to hyper.directory. No need for www, no need for .com, just hyper.directory. Connecting customers to local companies when it matters most. Hyperdirectory is your local business directory partnered with the Ocala Chamber and Economic Partnership to bring you trusted local businesses. Keeping Ocala local. Use hyper.directory. No www, not even .com, just hyper.directory. Connecting customers to businesses when it matters most.
Putting the local back into radio. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. WOCA News. Variety. Information. Now. Keep your arms and legs on the inside at all times.
All right, 12 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. We are talking to Dr. Ernest Morrell. He and Pam Allen wrote a book called Every Child a Super Reader. It is a Scholastic published product, a book, I should say. Do you know what I was thinking during the break, Doctor, is this, that I'm just wondering about the tablet and its role in the reading habits of children. If I'm sitting on the bus, let's say, and across from me there's a child looking at a tablet, maybe he or she's reading a book and not playing a game. Maybe there's a book on that tablet. We're thinking in terms of books because I'm old, but maybe the books of today are on those tablets.
I think that we're in a multi-format age now, and I like it. I don't want to push the book out, and I don't want to push the tablet away either.
Yeah.
One of the things that it does is it's light. I think about my own kid's backpack.
Right.
If you've got 10,000 books on that tablet, and it's cheaper to get it to you, and you can make the words bigger if your eyesight is bad. you flip it and it's like flipping the pages, and it's connected to a dictionary, and you can look up a word if you don't know what the word means.
Right.
There are a lot of advantages to that, and I'd be lying if I didn't say I don't read on a tablet. I read on a tablet. I'm an English professor, and I can read Shakespeare on the tablet just like in the dusty tome of Norton's anthology. I think that we should encourage both formats, and in some of the schools, it's actually easier for them to get the books. Libraries now, like our local library, we can get books sent right to our tablet. And
Absolutely, yeah.
But teachers can only do so much because they have their families too, and it's up to the parent to take responsibility for their own children. So many times I've seen parents that just, put a tablet in front of a child or put them in front of the TV in front of Sesame Street, and then they're off on their own doing whatever it is they're doing. And parents have got to step up to the plate, not just because the children will be more successful, but because of that parental involvement and the love for life.
I agree. It's a great point, Rob. And if you just look at it quantitatively, think about how much time kids spend outside of school, right? They're in school 6 days or 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. There's 144 hours in a week, and that's 30 hours. And then you think about the summertime and all of those hours. And if you're not reinforcing reading at home, you're doing your kid a tremendous disservice. Even school being constant, home is a big, big variable. And so we're really, really, kind of pushing parents and grandparents and older siblings and neighbors and community organizations and churches. And everyone has to be a partner in this. As Pam says, it's a 24/7, 365 enterprise, and we're all in it together.
In music, we often are amazed when we see a guitar player just playing 1,000 notes a minute, or a drummer playing, like there's no break in between any of the hits on the drum heads, and we put so much emphasis on speed and the athletic ability of musicians sometimes. Music is actually better when it's slowed down. I often thought the same thing is true with reading, is that whole push for the speed reading was like I can read a book in a day, or an hour. I can read a book in an hour, and I'm thinking, well, is that better? I mean, if you're reading the book and enjoying the book, what difference does it make what the pace is?
Yeah, I agree, and I think that there, in some cases, a direct trade-off between the speed of reading and the close critical reading that's important. At the college level, skimming a book is not going to help you be able to be a participant in the discussion in any meaningful way. And I hope we're moving away from that. I mean, I really do think that in the contemporary standards across the states, you see less of that. You have to read this many books. And it's really reading shorter chunks of information, reading and rereading, right? And that's a word we're reintroducing, right? The rereading, reading it more than once, reading it very closely, reading it very carefully, because that's what's going to make a difference. If you can't say something really profound, or you don't really feel like you own the text, and it doesn't matter if you just skimmed it and you forget it in a few minutes.
That's right,
I'm glad you brought that point up. That's really important. And like you said, you're reading the same book over and over again. To your own.
There was an old lady who swallowed a fly. Yeah, I can recite the whole thing.
Yeah. You also talk about confidence and hope, because sometimes of an environment that a child is brought up into, they might turn toward the bad elements of life instead of feeling that they have the confidence and the hope to succeed, and they're one of the good guys.
Yeah, that is so important. And I think of one of the best gifts that we can give to our children, whether we're teachers or parents, is hope. And the more hope that they have for themselves, as you mentioned, the more they walk that straight and narrow path into adulthood that we want for all of the children, the more likely they are to take care of themselves in terms of their physical and mental health, but also the more productive they're going to be as citizens, the more optimistic they're going to be, the less stress-related illnesses they'll have in middle age and later on in life. And that's so important, that it's not just about how well you test. It's also what kind of person you see yourself as being. And as parents, we want our kids to do well in school, but we really want them to win at the game of life. And if there's a way that a reading life can help them with that, then by all means. And we feel that it can. I mean, that the kind of reading movement we're recommending does build that confidence and that courage and that hope.
One of the things we probably all took from school was the idea that the different teachers with the different classes usually had different reading assignments, and social studies specifically is what I wanted to talk about. When the social studies teacher would give you a book to read by Malcolm X or by Anne Frank or by anybody who was telling their story, and you are starting to understand what it is like to be somebody else, what it's like to be a woman, what it's like to be a minority, what it's like to be a special needs person. It really does open up your eyes to being more empathetic to the people around you.
Yeah, that's a great point. And when we go through the strengths, one of the strengths we have is friendship. Another is kindness, and they make exactly that point, that the more we're able to kind of take someone else's perspective, and we learn that all perspectives matter, it helps us to understand our own stories better, but also helps us to be much better contributors to the world. And so one of the things that we can do when we're selecting books for kids and with kids is try to have a range of books that show a range of different kinds of perspectives. And that's one of the reasons why we have English as a discipline. It's not just about being grammatically proficient. It's also about being tapped into the human condition.
And children won't feel lonely because sometimes they do feel abandoned.
Yes, that's right, exactly. And there's so many books out there that every child should be able to read herself into a story.
The book is called Every Child a Super Reader. Doctor, thank you for being on. We're not out of time quite yet, but I wanted to give you enough time to give us information so that our listeners could look up the book. The only website I actually have in my notes here is scholastic.com. Can we get it there?
You can get it there, yes. And I just think that this is something that every parent should have. You can find the book at scholastic.com/superreader. That's the easiest and fastest way to get it.
Okay, excellent. And how long has the book been out?
It just launched last month, so we're really, it's a 2016 book, and there's excitement all over the place. I was telling Rob, there's even excitement in my own family about a book that I wrote. So I'm happy about that.
That's good.
It's because it's practical, and they can actually use it with their own kids. So we're just as excited as can be about not just the book, but about the movement of reclaiming our relationships with our kids and really encouraging every kid to be a super reader.
I really hope that there are the two groups of people that I can see in my mind's eye that really are hopefully getting this message are the parents who say, whatever the country decides to do with our education system, I'm still going to take it upon myself to make sure reading is an important part of my child's life. But then also the legislators, especially those on the school boards, who say, let's pay attention to what this book is saying, and make reading something that becomes the tool. You know what they always say? I don't know who coined this phrase, but they say you learn until about third grade. Up until third grade, you learn to read, and then after that, you read to learn, right? Or whatever the thing is. Yeah. That's it. And for the rest of your life, I'm not a young person, and I'm still reading to learn. I'm sure that you are too. All the time.
Lifelong adventure. Yes.
And usually the older children are the pioneers for their younger siblings, because the younger sibling looks to their older sibling as a hero and their protector. And if the older sibling can be reading to the younger one, that'll just make that bond even more.
Yeah, and it's just a wonderful thing to see a family reading together, right? That's a family headed places.
Yeah. Just don't tell me what happens in chapter 14. I know you're ahead of me. Don't tell me what happens there. Everybody's talking about chapter 14.
No spoiler alert. That's right.
What a great point to be making. And thank you for doing that. Thank you for writing the book, and extend our thanks to Pam Allen as well. Every child a super reader. 7 strengths to open a world of possible. Dr. Ernest Morrell, thank you, and thank Pam Allen for being on the air with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a great conversation.
All right, we will take a little break and we'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM. The